Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about something kind of unique. I don't think this is talked about near as much as some other things that we've talked about in the past, and that is simply recoil or muzzle flip rhythm. I've been thinking about this the last few weeks, so I wanted to kind of bring this out. So we've talked a lot about on the channel about the softness of recoil, and we'll talk about that quickly and give you a definition of what I mean, because everybody can mean something a little bit different. We've talked about muzzle flip or muzzle rise a lot on the channel. We talked about that a whole lot. But one thing that does not get talked about and does not get tested, you can see it visually on many channels when you're watching people shoot different guns, and when they slow them down and they try to show you how flat a gun is, you can see this. And so I want you to start paying attention to this, because this is something I think is as vital as how flat a gun is. It might be even more important to shoot quickly and accurately. This topic may be more important than how soft or how flat a gun shoots, and that is recoil rhythm. Okay, I hope I'm saying that correctly, the way I kind of want to articulate what I'm trying to say. But rhythm is ignored a lot, and we're going to give you some examples. And let's talk about the first two things we just mentioned, because we have talked about those in the past. Let's go ahead and take a couple of these guns off, a little bit off camera, so I can show you. So the recoil softness of a gun is what I would call when you pull the trigger back, and how much energy is coming back into the hand as you shoot the gun. So when you're shooting the gun, how much energy are you feeling in the palm of your hand when you shoot the gun? I would call that recoil softness. It has nothing to do with the muzzle rise, muzzle flip. It's how soft it shoots in the hand. That is very important, but it is probably one of the least important aspects of shooting fast and accurately is recoil softness. When I think about a soft shooting gun, it probably would be this one. This one's very soft shooting in the hand. It always has been. When I think of something that probably shoots a little bit stronger in the hand, I think of the Archon Type B, because of its low bore axis. It keeps the muzzle rise down, but it does have a lot of energy coming back into the hand. I think of the Alien, Luego. I think Luego Arms Alien, I think, is correct way to say that. But the Alien is meant to have a super low bore axis, but everyone that shoots it, I've still yet to shoot it. I would like to shoot it. But everyone that shoots it says, yes, it does hardly rises at all. It hardly has any muzzle rise, but there is a lot of energy felt in the hand, because that energy has got to go somewhere. That's one reason I like porting, is because the porting allows for that energy to escape out the top of the barrel instead of going into your hand or rising up with the gun as it flips upwards. So porting helps mitigate the energy that is coming out of the gun, and that energy gets dumped into the air instead of into your hand or into the muzzle flip. So the Alien pistol is one of those pistols I would say has, shows quite a bit of energy in the back of the hand, but very little muzzle rise. So that's softness. The softness is how much energy is coming into the gun every time the trigger is pulled. How much energy, how much push are you getting on the back of your palm, right here on the grip, muzzle, or I should say the softness of the recoil. That would be determined by that factor. Muzzle rise, or muzzle flip as people call it, is how much travel is there in this pivoting point of the pistol. How much travel up do you have? What kind of angle are you getting every time you pull the trigger? How high is that muzzle rising and falling? That's muzzle rise. So we want to get that out of the way so we can move into the next topic that does not get touched, that does not get measured very often, that does not get talked about. But I think this may be one of the most important factors in having a really soft gun, and that is the rhythm of the muzzle rise, the rhythm of the recoil of the gun. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I hope I can articulate this properly, or the way I want to. And those of you that shot a lot, or you shot a lot of competitions, or you shot a lot of drills at speed, you're going to probably know exactly what I talk about, and you're going to be like, why don't people talk about this more? Because it is very important. and you've all shot, anybody that shot a lot of pistols and shot a lot of competitions and shot a lot of calibers of pistols, you've noticed this and you've been like, man, I just don't like the way that gun feels when I shoot it. There's something about it where it takes a long time for me to get back on target to make that next shot, just for me to really stabilize. And that is the rhythm. So here, let me give you kind of an example with the gun on the table, and then we'll bring out a chart and I'll kind of show you some things. The rhythm would be, let's say you're shooting, let me just give you, for instance, let's say this is non-ported, and this one is ported, but let's say it's non-ported. With a Glock, your rhythm is usually going to be, you're going to come up about like that, if you got a pretty decent grip, and the gun's going to come back down and stop, and you're going to shoot again. It's going to come up, it's going to come back down and stop. If you got a ported Glock, it may go up like this and then come back down pretty quick, or a little quicker than a non-ported, and you'll have a rhythm kind of like that. But what I've noticed, and I really want to bring this out because this is something I really noticed on some of these high-end comped 2011s and guns sort of like that, even some ported guns. I've even had my own struggles with my ported guns, getting them tuned properly. But let me put this one back out here. What you'll notice on a really good tuned 2011, what you want is for you to pull the trigger and the gun to come up a little bit, and you can feel so you want a little bit of muzzle rise in any gun, because I feel like that gives you a rhythm to follow. It's very important that you can follow some kind of beat when you're doing double taps and you're doing drills and you're trying to shoot fast. You want that rhythm. So you want a little bit of muzzle flip to get that rhythm. And what I've noticed about even like staccato XCs, I've even seen it on the new P211 by SIG, and I've noticed it on many guns, and I've even had that problem with this one, and I've had to kind of work on it, getting it tuned just right. But what you'll notice sometimes is a gun will rise up, come back down, go below your sight picture, go below your aiming point, let's say. On the red dot will go kind of below where you're wanting to aim, and then come back up and then bounce back down, and you'll get like that little wobble motion. And that is almost more difficult to shoot than a gun that has more muzzle flip and comes right back down into place, because a lot of guns will kind of come up and you have to use your grip strength or a little downward pressure to kind of get the gun to come back down. You don't really want to do that a lot, because a good shooter will let the gun do the work for them. But sometimes when you're trying to shoot really fast, you're going to grip the gun hard enough to where you're kind of helping it get back down quicker, right? So let's show this on a chart real quick, and you'll have to excuse my poor drawing here. Hopefully you can see this on the chart. Let me see if I can get something to kind of show you guys. All right, so right here I've got like a SIG P365. So you've got a lot of muzzle flip. This is the point where the shot is broke, or the trigger's broke, and the shot goes off and the muzzle rise starts to raise up, and you kind of slowly come back down because that gun has got so much muzzle flip, and the gun itself doesn't really want to drop the muzzle of its own accord, so you kind of got to wait for that muzzle to come back down to shoot again. So it's a little slow at your with your cadence. Your shooting, your splits are a little bit slow with a P365, just because the amount of muzzle flip and the fact that the gun itself does not really want to lower back to your sight picture. So that's going to be a little slower. Like an XD is kind of the same way, maybe a little less muzzle flip, but a Springfield XD has a higher bore axis, so you'll kind of get this lot of muzzle rise and a slower return to zero. A Glock is a little less muzzle flip because of its lower bore axis, and you get this medium speed because the muzzle is usually a little, number one, the muzzle rise is not quite as high as an XD or P365, but you'll get this medium speed down because of the grip angle, and because of the lower bore axis, it tends to return to zero a little faster. And so a non-ported 2011 is very similar. I mean, you might have a little more muzzle rise or a little less depending on the weight of the 2011 or whatever, but it's going to be very similar to this Glock. It's going to want to return a little bit faster than the P365. But what we want to talk about is a properly ported gun. What you really want it to do is have a little bit of muzzle rise, as you can see here, and then the ports or the comp, you want it to return the gun quickly. So as soon as that gun comes up, it's going to come up quickly. It always is going to go up quick because it's all that energy of that recoil, right? So it's going to go up quick. But a ported gun is going to come up a little bit and it's going to come down really fast and stop. So that's what you want. And this is an easy gun to shoot fast. It's an easy gun to double tap. It's an easy gun to get A-zone hits with very fast splits. That's what you want in a tuned gun. What I see in many factory comped 2011s, even go watch, I mean, I promise you, go watch some reviews, especially when they slow down the footage and use slow motion footage. Go watch the Staccato XCs. Go watch the SIG P211s, the new 2011 from SIG. Go watch many of these ported guns, and they'll want to rant and rave on how flat they are. But here is what you'll see in the rhythm. So you'll see the shot is broke, the gun barely rises, but then it comes back down quickly below where you're aiming on target. So let's say the line across, let's say this is a line across where you're wanting to keep the red dot. It'll actually dip below and then come back above the sight picture, down below, and then back up and then stabilize. And this right here is almost harder to shoot than something like this up here, the regular 2011 that's not ported. I'm not saying every time it is. It does look better on video. This right here looks a lot better when it comes to muzzle rise on video. And people's like, oh, it's super flat. But I promise you, go watch some videos. And even some of these big old dudes with huge hands and awesome grip strength, you'll see a lot of times their guns doing this right here. And this right here, you know, a lot of times when their gun's doing this, they won't show you the target. They're shooting super fast, the gun's shooting super flat, but probably on the target, you're getting, even at 5 yards, you're getting shots 2 inches high, 2 inches low, in the middle, 2 inches high, 2 inches low. You're just getting this spread of up and down hits because the gun's rhythm. So what we really want is for a gun to go up, even if it rises higher than this poorly tuned, ported comp 2011 or gun, whatever it is, striker fired, it don't matter. Even if it has a little bit more muzzle flip, what you really want is for that gun to go up quick and come down real fast and stabilize on the bullseye that you're wanting to hit, whatever you're aiming at, your aiming point. You want the gun to go up from that aiming point quick and back down to that aiming point and stabilize right on that aiming point. That's where you'll get super fast splits with super accurate groups. And a lot of this can be trained. You know, you can train a little bit of this out, but some guns naturally want to do this. And a lot of you shooters who have shot more than 10 or 15 guns, especially high-end guns, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about when I show this to you. And I hope that you'll think about it. And as you watch videos going forward, as you watch gun reviews going forward, as you watch these real expensive comped or ported guns, just see how many of those have a rhythm like this, a recoil muzzle rise rhythm, where the gun bounces before it stabilizes again. It bounces. You don't want that bounce. And many guns do that. Even some of mine are worse than others. And I tend to find the ones that don't bounce like that to be the funnest and the easiest to shoot without overthinking, without tons of training and input and time on the range. You know, you can just take that gun out. If it has the proper rhythm, like this one, you can take it out to the range, take it to a match, and you don't have to do a whole lot of live fire with that gun to be good with it. The guns that do this, they take a little bit more work. And so before you buy a high-end gun, I suggest you watch slow motion footage and see if the gun is doing this rhythm or it's doing something more like this. And I would prefer the gun to have a little bit more muzzle flip and less kind of this vibration of up and down. Sometimes you'll even get, when you fire a gun that's really strongly ported, sometimes you'll even get this kind of this circular vibration as you're shooting. You'll kind of get, so your spread on target will be a little left, a little right, a little up, a little down, but it's really hard to get those tight groups because the gun is just kind of bouncy. And in that motion, depending on your grip and the handle of the gun, you know, you can get that kind of circular motion. And so it's very important to at least know what your gun will do. You want to, if you can, get your gun to be like more like this by either recoil springs, the way it's tuned, the way it's ported, the way it's comped. If you can get it like this, it's perfect. A lot of guns will naturally want to do something more like this once you get into the ported and comped world and you start getting really expensive guns. So see if you can find a way to minimize this through your tuning, your training. Like I said, most guns, you know, it's going to be hard to train out of this. The gun's always going to want to do this, so it's going to be kind of hard to shoot a gun like that. But anyway, just pay attention to it. I hope this kind of gives you some kind of information or education on gun recoil rhythm, and that maybe you'll further your growth of firearms and kind of what to look for. And correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you've noticed these things. Tell me if this is something that doesn't really matter to you. When you're shooting competition, these things become a lot more relevant. Or when you're shooting fast under stress. When you're just shooting on the flat range, none of this stuff really matters that much. You can shoot any gun accurately at a slow speed, a slow cadence, and with no stress. But when you start getting under high stress and you start shooting fast splits and you're trying to fight the timer, the clock, this becomes very relevant. So let me know what you think. Tell me if this is something that's at least interesting and you at least believe in this to a certain degree. Let me know if you disagree with what I'm saying. But I have seen a lot of gun videos, even high-end 2011s, where you get this poor rhythm. And even some of mine, I've noticed in my slow motion, I've had problems with that improper rhythm of the gun kind of wanting to rise up and go down too low and come back up. And, it just takes a while for that certain gun to stabilize because of the way it's balanced and the way it feels, the way the grip, it might be something to do with grip texture, weight balance, too heavy, too light. It's all kind of different factors. Spring weights, but this is very important. So your goal is to get your gun about right here to be really easy to shoot, and this is where a lot of guns are, and this is kind of some of your stock configuration guns. So I'm kind of showing you the difference on a chart of recoil muzzle rise. So guys, let me know what you think. God bless. Have a great day. I hope this at least educated you and maybe made you think about something you've never thought about before. Talk to you guys later.